What does freedom mean to you? What does it look like? Many people will say that it's freedom to spend your time however you like, not having to work, having lots of money so you have more choices, right? We've been sold this idea that freedom means finally achieving, accomplishing, and attaining some status, money, time freedom, space, choice freedom, the ability to be and live how we want, the ability to escape or not do what you don't want to do, right? Or if we don't have any people in our lives who annoy or trigger us, freedom from psychological or emotional pain, relational or existential angst, having less or no responsibilities that we don't enjoy, freedom from triggers, psychological wounds or pain. But that's not the kind of freedom I'm really talking about here, because as long as it and we still exist inside the current cultural and social systems that have defined, structured, and determined to a large degree our lives for us for centuries, these perceptions or notions of what constitutes freedom are still illusions which continue to bind us within that system and are therefore still traps. That we can be considered free due to external fortunate circumstances is valid, yet somewhat surface, right? Because what about our internal state? Because we all know and have heard stories of people who have all the resources and choices at their disposal, yet are otherwise unhappy or even miserable on the inside, right? So what exactly is true internal state freedom? Freedom from ideology, ideation, notions, ways of perceiving things that keep us limited and trapped, circling in the same anger, bitterness, resentment, blame, powerlessness, failure, frustration, or constriction? Real freedom isn't about escaping certain conditions within the current system, though that might feel good for a while. Real freedom is about stepping outside the system altogether and freeing yourself from the inside out by deprogramming your ideas of what is and isn't possible in this body, in this human life, on this planet Earth, right now and in the future. Real freedom is about recognizing and no longer arguing in favor of the intricate web of limitation conditioning, coulds, shoulds, can'ts, I would, but, and realizing that you've been hypnotized into a belief in an experience of reality that profoundly, thoroughly, and fundamentally, foundationally limits you in every way, and that there is a way and means to disentangle yourself from it, discovering that for yourself and fully engaging with it in an ardent fervor which cannot help but result in the perpetuation and proliferation of a phenomenally freer experience for you and all those in your life and those whom you come in contact with. You begin to get a sense of what true freedom is when you realize, I'm not trapped in this. I am the one who chooses it. And I choose it every day and in each new moment, so I can learn the lessons and graduate to the next level of understanding and choice-making agency, which involves designing a new life with a new power and command of reality creation, which previously seemed unrealistic or unattainable. There's a scene in The Matrix where, I don't recall the characters' names, but this woman offers Keanu Reeves a piece of gum or candy, and she asks him, "Do you want this?" And he responds, "You already know what my choice is." And then she says, "You didn't come here to make the choice. You've already made it. You came here to understand why you made the choice." When you become an adept at zeroing in on and expanding out from your usual habitual focus and attention, and when your perspective widens and you train yourself to take a 360-degree perspective on each and every experience situation and circumstance that you encounter in each present moment, you can start to first append and then radically open up your understanding and experiential awareness of, and therefore begin to increasingly access the truest potential inherent in life on this planet in these human bodies. And I'm going to be really real here. I've gotten myself into a lot of trouble trying to master this practice of zeroing in and expanding out. It's hard not to bypass. It can be really tricky. It's hard not to get all tangled up in the mind's way, right? It really can be challenging not over engaging with or dismissing the mental impressions in and around things. We can have the experience of spending a lot of time in pain and anger and anguish and bitterness or resentment due to the choices we've made, often due to a deeply seated feeling that we didn't make them from a place of absolute freedom, right? We didn't like any of our options. We were somehow limited in our ability to choose, mostly due to some perceived lack, right? And or we're under a kind of duress, all the could, should, would, but can'ts due to so many cultural, social impositions which corral us into certain situations and circumstances and inevitabilities where we're convinced that our choices are actually limited, right, by money, time, status, history, other people's opinions or perceptions. It is a very real and very disempowering experience. But it's just life, right? Just how things are and how it has to be. It has to be this way. Have you ever had anyone tell you that? I know I have. It doesn't have to be that way. Maybe there at that time in that particular environment it did, because at that time those who were in control created it that way and maintained it that way because it benefited them in some way, right? Protected a cherished ideal. But as we move forward and start creating new intentional times and places and environments, it will increasingly not be that way anymore as we move forward over the next decade and beyond. It's customary to be habituated into chasing a future freedom, though, through outer attainment, right? Jobs, money, success, partners, location, independence. However, outer freedom often becomes just a prettier, bigger, or more elaborate and delusive cage if the inner world is still reactive, wounded, or unresolved. This is one of the myths of the modern world, right? External change will create internal peace, which isn't entirely untrue, because the external circumstances can do and will deeply affect and or disable your inner state to whichever degree you have freed your own mind, body, and spirit, right? However, freedom begins with presence, awareness, and a respective perspective, not unhealthy assumption, denial, or avoidance. And I say unhealthy because I've been accused of and have contemplated if I was actually engaged with unhealthy or deluded denial myself. Because there's a way in which we need to kind of deny certain perceived realities that are generated from the past or limitation programming, right? In order to reorient ourselves toward the real reality or broader, more expanded truth. And it's an awkward fine line place to travel through, especially if you're still traversing through a mostly traditional social and cultural space. So I want to invite you to explore, can I be with what is, even if I don't like it, even if I sense the limitation and off quality, but can't really define, name, or point at it or change it in the moment without shrinking from it? Can I explore it freely with my mind, body, and spirit and be really honest about all the ways I'm thinking and feeling about things and all the past impressions that are coming up around it, so I can really get to the root and the core of what is and what is not real? Can I wholeheartedly engage with what is arising psychologically and emotionally without playing tricks on myself? both the tricks I've been taught to play and the ones I have developed myself over the years to cope with what isn't right, fair, or real that have been programmed into me and which controls my or our adaptive function. And what are the ways I continue to limit myself, choose or accept a limited solution or way out of exasperation, exhaustion, or simply feeling lost or unable to control the larger reality playing out around me? Emotional and psychological freedom begins when we learn to feel all of our feelings without drowning or numbing or avoiding, and witness as much of the information we have access to, not just with our eyes and ears, but with all of our senses, which include those extra or hyper perceptual, without projecting or dissociating. Speak from curiosity without making assumptions, modifying or attacking. Right? Decide from a place of deep consideration and consciousness without reacting. This is the heart of emotional sovereignty. And here's the thing, words, right? It does sound complicated and more than you want to have to think about or consider in each moment, right? Exchange or encounter in your day-to-day lived reality, but by bringing it out of the realm of the mind as much as possible. Because there are all these things swirling around in here that have been programmed in, right? Ways of perceiving and interpreting and feeling and reacting, not to mention all the lessons from experience, etc., that we may or may not have fully processed, understood accurately, or even realized is there, right? Now, I'm somewhat of a brainiac, so I know this can be challenging. I tend to retreat into contemplation and never want to emerge. But you do need to emerge. So keep it simple by remembering that you are not a victim of your life. You are the evolving soul who chose it, and for good reason. Everything in your life is part of a chosen curriculum or soul path and has been contracted and very carefully laid out. Yes, even abusive, difficult, or painful relationships serve as evolutionary assignments. And this is not about bypassing, because you really do need to do the work of processing the results of these immensely challenging circumstances. Because it's about rising above what we might not have even realized is a profound and deeply rooted, yet somehow very comfortable fragmentation into what might be experienced as an at first terrifyingly expansive and open soul knowing. And that is the beauty and majesty of incarnating on this magnificent planet in these awesome and miraculous bodies, right? Even when you're like, WTF, like why on earth would I have chosen this? And you're tempted to lapse into self-recrimination or otherwise beat yourself up over whatever situation you find yourself in, right? You came here for this, to learn and grow and wake up. You don't get free by ignoring the pain. You get free by moving through it. Not as quickly as you can so you can just get through it. You must both feel it in the moment and see it from a larger arc. Zoom in, this is what I'm feeling. Zoom out, this is what I chose. Why would I have chosen this? How is this serving my evolution? This dual awareness is how karmic knots unwind and real liberation and deeper responsibility occurs. Freedom isn't just just something you find or buy with money, right? You obtain it through attentive awareness and practice. It's something you embody more and more over time. Real freedom is both a psychological and energetic stance, or dance, if you will, that is rooted and expanded and infinitely creative in presence, perspective, and a whole new experience of power. I am the one who writes this story. I'm not a reaction to it anymore, even though, yes, I do sometimes get lost in it, duped by it, and otherwise feel out of control, out of or unable to control. Right? Emotional freedom is the byproduct of taking extensive and deep inventory and responsibility and cultivating a spiritual or energetic vision which steps you into physical reality in a whole new way. So ask yourself, if I'm the one who chooses this, what am I choosing now? Reclaim this current moment. Start right now. Repeatedly and continually notice when you find yourself in a victimhood position and shift into authorship by asking yourself, why would I choose this? What is it bringing up for me? What are the little and larger themes that are at play here? What can I shift and change, and what can I not yet alter from where I am at this point in my life? What soul lesson is this moment offering me? What would the free version of me do or feel right now? And how can I move from that perspective or positioning to the best of my ability right now? And humility is really important here, right? Get used to admitting you didn't do something right. You made a mistake. You'd like to take it back. You got caught up in a damaging cycle or emotion, right? Saying you're sorry and or even asking for forgiveness. Your tormentors will respond however they respond, and your ego might take a beating, but so what? So what? Ultimately, we are looking to go beyond the ego, and maybe this is a good topic to create a talk on. Your self-respect is an inside job and really has nothing to do with what anyone else thinks about you, how they treat you, or how they feel about you, right? And freedom is often in the small moments, the recognition, remember, pratyabhijna, that you are not this small self. You are not the mind or your thoughts or interpretations of things, right? You're not trapped in this way of being, living, perceiving, though it is very, very convincing. You are the one who is looking through and seeing through the veil and the illusion. And we are increasingly embodying this higher awareness and living from and choosing from and creating from that place, right? And the momentum is building, and we're stepping into a new freedom and a new world where that old stuff doesn't have as much power anymore, and where compassion clears the way for a deeper understanding of life as we know it. Release the illusion that freedom lives outside of you. Remember that you are the one who chose this moment. You're not here to suffer. You're here to remember, to love, to learn, and to awaken. You are not the pain you might find yourself in. You are the power that transmutes it. You're not the story you might be telling yourself or someone else might be telling you, right? You're the author. You're not trapped. You are free, very free, because I say so. And because deep down, you know it's true. So be that. Be free. And if you're ready to live from that freedom, not just as an idea, but as a lived reality, I invite you to explore my courses down below. Quantum Creation for those who are ready to reshape their reality with clarity and power, and the Sovereign Self for those who are reclaiming their identity, intuition, and inner knowing. You can find the links below. Thank you so much for joining me today. If this resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe. And let me know in the comments what freedom means to you right now and how it's playing out in your life. I'm so grateful to be walking this path with you. Until next time.